Yes. Welcome to the Free Roam podcast. We're episode. Oh damn! Now I'm gonna guess 6 or something.
Like 10.
No, 10.
Yeah.
Time flies. Wow. Okay, that's pretty crazy. You hear him already, of course. Luke Stevens. He's here in spirit with how many hours of sleep?
Like 2.
Ah,
Yeah, for those of you not familiar, we just had our second child, like almost exactly 2 weeks ago. And he's been great. He's been wonderful. But poor little Lockie, our oldest, who is about to turn 2 in September, he woke up with a really bad fever, and the poor little fella just had a rough night. So I'm going off of, according to my watch, about 2 hours of sleep. So a lot of
wow.
my takes might be hard to decipher, but
Yeah.
I'll rely
I'll try
on.
to keep the red line.
Yeah,
going.
Jordan will translate. Basically, is
Yeah,
what's
yeah.
gonna happen. Oh man, long
No,
night.
but cool that we're here again on the Wednesday, of course. Thanks everyone for joining live because you can, of course, watch it live every week in the Luke Stevens live chat here. And there will be a countdown timer up. Times might differ because of what Luke just talked about, but we will be here at least every week for you. So you can also just keep an eye out on the Luke Stevens channel for like the VOD in the live tab on the channel. Of course, you can find them or on any podcast service because the show will also be dropped there afterwards. So thanks for Jacob already joining, Rocky, Jack.
Oh, no.
Appreciate everyone being here. And we got, of course, some cool news to discuss this week because, of course, that's what we do every week in the Free Roam podcast. Go over the biggest gaming news, give our 2 cents. I saw some people not agreeing with my Game Pass take last week, which is fine because I think we had a cool conversation. If you did not listen to that episode, it's, of course, up, so you can, have a listen. But basically, it was about the whole Game Pass situation where if they would put Call of Duty on it, would that be profitable for Activision? Because people are, of course, like some people are going to be playing Call of Duty for a full year. So if they don't buy the game but subscribe to Game Pass instead, then Activision in the end gets more money from them if they want to keep the access to the game. Well, I argued that I do think a lot of people will then only just subscribe to Game Pass for a month and then probably drop off after that. So we had a fun conversation about that. And we will discuss more Game Pass stuff today because the FTC Microsoft battle continues in court with a ton of stuff that we are not supposed to hear. But hey, they want to get this 69, 80, what's the number again? 59 billion? Like, what was the number again?
69. I think it's now 69.8 billion.
Yeah,
Is
almost 70
roughly what it
billion
is, yeah.
dollar. Yeah, deal. They want to get that. They want the King money, the Candy Crush cash. They want Call of Duty. They want Diablo, the Blizzard games, all that sort of stuff. And yeah, FTC is like, no, that's not good for the industry. But so far, like from what I've been seeing, like I've been keeping a close eye on it, doesn't seem like it's like going the FTC wake.
Yeah.
There are some good points here and there, but overall, it's mostly Sony saying, hey, if you do this, you're getting way more competitive, and we don't like that. But hey, that's the market, right?
That's the market. Well, and one of the most telling things I think was when the judge came out and was like cutting off the FTC lawyers from continuing questions because they were trying to grill Phil Spencer on a bunch of stuff. And the judge came in and was like, I don't need to hear that. You can stop. And when the judge is stepping in to cut off your line of questioning, whether it's in the context of like a court case and you watch true crime stuff, that's never great when the judge is like, sit down. So it's going to be really interesting. And like Jor said, there's a lot of dirty, filthy, putrid laundry that's being aired right now in publicly accessible documents, some of which is just so delicious because you'll see what somebody, and we'll talk about this, somebody within Xbox who we all know emails their boss and is very, very nice and cordial and polite, and then he emails his coworkers and is totally different. It's like, yeah, so Mr. Boss, let's work on this. Let's get it together. And then he emails his coworkers and is like, what is happening? Everything's falling apart. It's really entertaining. So buckle up. It's gonna be a
because
fun
of course,
one.
when they sent that email, they did not think that it would like become public knowledge at one point. But here we are.
Mhm.
And we also have some Red Dead Redemption stuff because maybe you saw the thumbnail. There's like a potential re-release coming for that, so we want to, of course, discuss that. I also put some BioWare news in the doc, so maybe we can go over that,
Ooh,
which could be
baby.
interesting. Some game sales, so quite a bunch to get into.
Yeah, there's just a lot. It's a good week, a slow week. There's only a few big things to talk about, but the things that are here are delicious. So
Yeah.
buckle
Yummy,
up,
yummy, yummy.
ladies and gents.
And thanks, Patrick, there. I love these streams. Thanks a lot for the donation.
Thank you.
Appreciate it a lot.
We love them too. I look forward to this all the time. People are like, are you going to take like 2-3 weeks off when the baby comes? And I was like, I mean, maybe we'll see what has to happen. But this is like how I release. This isn't work to me. I look forward to this. I like when the weekend hits, I miss doing streams, interacting with all of you. I miss the podcast. So I'm like, you know what? I think it's just good for my mental health. So thank you all for being here and helping make this
because
a thing.
I gotta be honest, like with 2 hours of sleep, I'm not noticing it. So I think when you like go live or something, you get this extra energy that's somewhere in your body.
I think so. I'm a weird hybrid of like extrovert and introvert because I like my private time where I shut off all the lights and I'm alone, but I do get energized by being around other people and talking with other people and socializing, whether that's on stream or in person. So I don't know if there's a name for that. I'm just a trovert instead of extrovert, introvert. I'm a vert. I don't know. I'm both, but who knows? But either way, we're very glad to be here, and
yes,
we got a lot to talk about. So why don't you kick us off, Mr. Joe Raptor?
Yeah, to kind of continue on the Game Pass and on the Game Pass thing. So, and this kind of proves my point. I just throwing that out there. But no, so Bobby Kotick, of course, the Activision boss, he also had to get up on the stage and was cross-examined by either the FTC lawyers and the Microsoft lawyers. And he, of course, is like in this position where he will get a shit ton of money if this deal goes through. So he's like, yeah, let's do it, right?
Yeah, please.
He wants that big. He's already like filthy rich.
Oh no.
Either way, so he was asked about Game Pass, and he basically said like if it was up to him, he would not put Call of Duty on Game Pass because that's of course probably going to happen when Microsoft acquires Activision. They will put all the Blizzard, all the Call of Duty games day one on the service because it would be kind of weird to have to say, hey, all our first party games will be day one on the service, but then not do it for your newly acquired biggest games. But yeah, Activision CEO said that he is not interested in putting any of the publishers' games on a multi-game subscription service like Game Pass. And also Microsoft will do that, and he basically said like, I agree to disagree. So he also was like, okay, they own the stuff if the deal goes through, so I can make the decision. I personally would not do it, but hey, they own the place, they can.
Yeah. Well, and the other piece of this too is just that like Kotick is like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? Like they're swimming in money right now, and that's why everybody wants Activision. Activision Blizzard King. I mean, the whole kit and caboodle. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I think that's generally his approach. Is he's just like, yeah, we have been printing money for years and years. We don't really need to bother with it if we don't have some other push.
Yeah.
By the way, George,
analyze it, annualize it. That's their mentality.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, you keep like kind of freezing and dropping out. So maybe see if you're like downloading something. It's weird. It's really clean and crisp, and then it'll freeze for like a second or two. It's.
I will like close some of my browsers and stuff.
Maybe sure. Yeah. If I come in and it sounds like I'm just trying to cut you off, I swear I'm not. I'm just filling dead air.
No. Don't worry.
While you work on that, I mean, it's as to whether this is like a big deal for the sake of the FTC deal. I I wouldn't expect it to be. It's just clear Xbox approaches their business if they had these games under their purview differently than if Activision were operating solely. Like, no duh. But some people have taken this as like proof positive that Game Pass is destroying publishers. I'm like, no, because it makes sense in the broader context of Game Pass if it's all under the same umbrella. Though I'll admit, for an individual company to toss every single one of their huge games that are selling millions and millions of copies, to have them put it on a subscription service like this probably makes less sense. That's why I've been really surprised that Ubisoft has been doubling down on their Uplay thing, having their games come to that. But then again, I don't really know anybody who's signed up for Ubisoft.
Yeah, but there hasn't been like a good reason to. Like they started after Valhalla launched, and they haven't had like a big release since, apart from Far Cry. So I think it will be interesting with Mirage, like getting that on that service, playing it for a weekend.
I mean, there's been rumors for ages that Microsoft was going to make a deal for all of Ubisoft's catalog to come onto Game Pass. Maybe one day, but I mean, if Ubisoft is still doubling down on their own service, maybe it's for a reason. Maybe they are making good money and we just don't see it. I don't know.
I mean, they are now striking great deals by, of course, they're playing nice with both PlayStation and Sony because they still have like the Ubisoft Classic. Like they call it something weird on PlayStation, but like Far Cry 6 just dropped on PlayStation Extra, so like the second PS Plus tier. And I'm actually seeing in my tips and tricks videos that they are getting extra traction. So there are a lot of people playing Far Cry 6 right now because it is on this, on this PlayStation Plus subscription tier. So they're now probably getting a lot of money by putting their already released games on those services instead of putting them day one. But yeah, I find it interesting as well. You always like around like their Ubisoft Forward, they always have like this ad for Ubisoft Plus. But it's like the same price as Game Pass, and it's like, why?
Yeah,
why
for way less. And I mean, I guess if you're super, super into just replaying Assassin's Creed games and like jumping into what else? What else do they have?
Far Cry, they have the catalog for everything. Yeah.
Like,
everything is on there. That's kind of nice.
Yeah. I don't know. Either way,
it's like the Ultimate Edition as well. So if you're like, so it's like the big and. Yeah.
That's true.
Anyway,
Anyway, we'll continue on. But
so Jim Ryan, of course, the PlayStation boss, was also asked he did not show up. We talked about that in last week's episode, where it was like everyone from Microsoft is there. Like they really have this as their biggest priority, obviously. And for Sony, like Jim Ryan was spotted at Kojima, so he was like just chilling with Kojima while this FTC hearing is on. But they did do a video interview, which they showed during the court battle. And here he was also asked about Game Pass. And he said, I talked to all publishers and they anonymously do not like Game Pass because it's value destructive. Was that true at the time? I believe it has been true. You said you talked to all the publishers. Did you? I talk to publishers all the time, and it's very commonly held view over many years by the publishers. Not that it's helping the case at all, but it is still interesting to hear what the publishers think about it. And Take-Two's boss, Strauss Zelnick, has been very vocal about this as well. He says, subscriptions are great for catalog games, so games that have been out for a year, while for brand new releases, it doesn't make sense at this point.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I think we've seen Xbox begin to experiment with Starfield, 5 days, I think it's 5 days, early access, where
September 1st.
You'll get access to it before everybody else, but only if, and this is my understanding, even on Xbox, you'd have to pay for a full price version of the game to get that early access. My understanding is that there's not like a Game Pass early access pricing. Maybe they'll do that eventually. I don't know why they would, but my understanding is if you want that early access, which a lot of people do, they're going to have to pay full price, in which case like the whole appeal of it being on Game Pass day one kind of gets lost in the
it's
shuffle.
Like even before they announced that edition, Starfield was like number one on Steam. So it's kind of wild that game, it doesn't matter if it's on game. And that might be like a great proof where it's like, yeah, even if we put the game on Game Pass, many people will still buy the game if it's of this like particular caliber. So that would be very interesting.
Interestingly, Brandon Jens in chat says you get early access for $35.99 by upgrading to the premium edition. Interesting. So
from Game Pass, if you have
from Game Pass. So
that's huge.
So then you pay $36 to upgrade to that higher end edition, and then you get the early access. That's interesting.
A lot of money for those days.
For 5 days. 5 days, guys.
Yeah, but it's the premium edition that doesn't have the DLC as well. I think there's like more in that edition, right?
Perhaps. I guess we can circle back to
look
this.
that up.
Yeah, we'll circle back to this. I'll pull it up while we continue working through this. But the whole Jim Ryan not being present at the hearing has been really interesting to me. I actually emailed one of my old college professors, one of my favorite professors, and I just asked him because he specifically taught at least the class I took from him was like a foreign business class where he went over international business practices, how multinational corporations work together, how you deal with that. And it was a really fascinating class, but I asked him about this because he also apparently teaches in it like the master's program classes on like mergers and acquisitions. And he said his interpretation of the CEO or the head of a company that's claiming this thing is really, really bad for them, he interpreted his lack of presence as basically a forfeiture. In other words, he thought that Jim Ryan not being at the FTC hearing was Jim Ryan basically going, it's a lost cause. Oh, well. Because if he wanted to make it out to the FTC that this is like, no, this is going to destroy our business if this goes through. This is horrible for competition. This is terrible. He would be there in person talking and not just like casually hanging out with Kojima at Kojima Productions, probably talking about business still, but he would have rescheduled that if this was really a significant threat to their business. So it's an anecdotal example of somebody that teaches this and studies this as a professor, but he thought that that was indicative of Jim Ryan kind of being crestfallen and thinking that this is probably over and done with the FTC at least.
Makes sense.
I thought was interesting.
Yeah, for sure. And that also brings me to that I just put in the doc, the email that kind of has been used by Microsoft a lot as proof. So this from January 2022. So of course the deal was announced around that time, right? And this is basically Chris Deering. I have to look up his title, but he's like also like a big, he's like the president of Sony Entertainment. Email with Jim Ryan. And it's basically about how he talked, or like Jim Ryan is emailing him and he said, okay, I was with like Phil and Bobby this whole day. And it seems like Call of Duty will not leave PlayStation. And we've talked about that last week as well. That seems to be the thing, right? That's not going to happen because it would not make financial sense to pull Call of Duty from the biggest player base. So they're basically saying that we will be okay, more than okay. That's like the final line of that email. So that's what Sony internally is emailing to them. And then Chris is like, okay, let's see what else is there. Do you have like the email? Can you like maybe
I can
make
go
it
through
larger
this
or something?
So the initial thing, the big takeaway that George just mentioned was like this bit up here where Jim Ryan emailing to Chris Deering says, which I think this is a little telling. He describes how he's pretty sure we'll continue to see COD on PlayStation for many years to come. And then he's like, we got some good stuff coming, so keep your eyes peeled. He goes on to say, I'm not complacent and I'd rather this hadn't happened, but we'll be okay. More than okay. And when you're trying to describe to the FTC that this is like destructive for your business, this email is a little damning because you're talking to people. Again, he didn't know this was going to be released to the public. So he was speaking as candidly as he can. And he's like, it's really not that big of a deal. We're fine. He goes on to say, and this gets really, really funny. Okay, so I'm just going to read this. This gets ridiculous. So Chris replies and says, Phil Spencer was in CNBC saying that the acquisition would cement Microsoft as a player in mobile games. Strikes me as more of a king, which is the mobile division of Activision Blizzard.
Candy
King.
Crush.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Strikes me as more of a king play than Call of Duty, which is interesting because even Sony was saying it seems like they're more interested in the mobile division than Activision and Blizzard and all those, which is probably true. But he goes on to say, but King sold to Bobby, the CEO of Activision Blizzard, for $5 billion and has now grown to be worth $50 billion. Crazy. If it was Xbox or in Xbox exclusivity play, Spencer could have locked up Microsoft console exclusivity for the next 3 COD releases for maybe $5 billion. Then he goes on, the major cash out will lure most of the talent to take the money and run as fast as their contracts will allow, leaving Microsoft with a very gnarly management challenge. I bet Eve, the CEO of Ubisoft, is smiling like a Cheshire cat. Which is interesting and very apt description. And then he finishes it out with, if this was a play to end run, or I would assume end COD's run on PS5, etc., I think it will massively overvalued and will not meaningfully succeed. I guess Microsoft can piss away that kind of valuation without being more harmed than helped, but I am not losing a wink of sleep over the future of our baby. Hope you agree. P.S. They would have been better off announcing a new electric car.
So yeah, this is what Sony thinks internally, while of course publicly they've been crying and saying, "Oh my God, this will be the worst, and this is bad for gamers, etc., etc."
Yeah, apparently they're totally unconcerned. They're like, "Yeah, the mobile play is where most of this is coming." Like they say Call of Duty, and you've seen them like divert all of the attention to Call of Duty, which is interesting. And I think it's because it's the only thing that they could possibly argue. Like, yeah, they're going to get this huge game, Call of Duty, and take it off of PlayStation, even though Microsoft's guaranteeing that they won't do that. But that's because if they were to just complain about the mobile sector, like, oh yeah, they're going to buy King, and then they're going to have this $50 billion mobile behemoth under their belt. Like, there's nothing you can argue to FTC regulators. Sony's not huge into the mobile sector. It's not really approached for them. And Microsoft doesn't have a monopoly or anywhere close to it in the mobile sector right now. No, this would be their first chip at it. So it's just really, really telling that they've been crying and pleading for years at this point, like a year and a half basically, about this, saying that it's all about COD, it's all about Activision. And now we see these emails and they're like, oh no, it's whatever. We really don't care. The mobile thing sucks though.
There was like an extra sort of email that happened like in August 2022. So like, a few months later after this initial email. And that is where Jim Ryan was like, yeah, sure, that email came out, but then I did not had this email conversation with Phil yet. And that email conversation basically was about the fact that Phil was like emailing to Jim Ryan, hey, we have this deal for you for Call of Duty until 2027. So right now, of course, all the Call of Duty games have like the PlayStation marketing deal. They got some sort of exclusive like beta and some skins and stuff like that. So that will like last until next year. So the end of 2024 will be the final game with that sort of marketing. But Phil was like, hey, I can like give you a Call of Duty deal until 2027. So then you at least know until 2027, that is when Call of Duty will ship on PlayStation as well. And that is when, according to Jim Ryan in the court yesterday, he was getting second thoughts, because then he was like, wait, 2027, that's not a long time at all. And he also emailed Phil about other Blizzard games like Diablo, Overwatch 2. Like, these games are huge. We saw it with Diablo, of course, just coming out, being a huge hit, like one of the biggest selling games of the year. So he now also wants Phil's like sort of word on that those games will stay on PlayStation. Phil doesn't have to do that at all, but it was like an interesting sort of twist still there. In the end, I do agree with you. Like, it's not gonna change anything, and of course, PlayStation wants to keep all those games on their platform. And I do think, like, even though they kind of downplay it in their email, if like Overwatch 2 and Diablo did not launch on PlayStation this year, alongside with Call of Duty launching on Game Pass while being $80 on PlayStation, you do get like, I do get why Sony is like, damn. But on the other hand, we just got Final Fantasy 16. which is not on PlayStation. So it is kind of how these things work, sadly.
Yeah. I it's just so fascinating to me, the optics of this, because everything has been about trying to control the narrative. And as I've said for years at this point, Xbox's approach this generation has been to be the pro consumer option. And Sony is going more of the Apple route, where they have the premium products that are exclusive and are very high end. They have the really good games that are going to get Game of the Year, blah, blah, blah. And this, like, has been the trend for the last 3 years through this generation. And with this particular court case and through the FTC and, or court cases, slippery, but with this particular FTC hearing and then with the Activision deal and everything, that narrative has started to kind of get challenged a little bit. And it seems like Sony is trying to have their cake and eat it too. Like they're trying to argue that this is going to be damning for their business, that this is going to be horrible, but then also we're totally fine and Microsoft can't compete with us. And it's just really, really messy. It's just slimy.
Yeah. What do you think those good things are? Because Sony says, like, I'm pretty sure we will continue to see COD on PS for many years to come, which we discussed. We have some good things cooking. Keep your eyes peeled. As if, like, they have like a counter to that, so they're not scared because they also behind the scenes have some like big things that will be really significant and would counter this deal in a way.
I mean, this email's coming from January of 2022. So over a year ago, about a year and a half ago. And, you know, we could look at a handful of different things to say, oh, well, maybe they're going to acquire something. I think if they were going to acquire something and they were on the roll with that, we probably would have found out something about that by now. Typically,
was it before Bungie, probably, right?
I think maybe he was like talking about that. Bungie
was, I think, August last year or something.
It could have been Bungie stuff. It also could have been, they closed it July 15th of 2022. That's when they closed the deal. Yeah. So that could have been what he's referring to. They also announced a ton of live service games at this last PlayStation event that would have been in the early stages of creation back then.
Yeah, that's great stuff. Great stuff.
This is just phenomenal. But like, this is one of those things where I think for somebody like Jim Ryan, because he's just your typical corporate bigwig, I think to him that stuff is really exciting.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't think he looks at that and it's like cringe. I think he's like, oh, that actually looks pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, we also got more stuff with regards to Jim Ryan and Phil Spencer, specifically a released email chain between the two of them, which is fascinating. So this email chain comes...
That's the one that I just discussed, right? About August 2022, where... Yeah, they're talking about the Call of Duty exclusivity deals.
Exactly. And I just wasn't... I mean, I figured these guys maybe talk a little bit. I wasn't thinking that they are having like full email exchanges with each other, but they are, and they have been. That's kind of cool.
Not even like best regards or something. Just like he ends with, and for gamers, Phil.
Yeah. Regards, Jim. This is like the most... bare bones, passive aggressive. It's so high school, dude. It's so high school. I love it. The like, as I previously stated to you in my emails and on our calls.
Damn,
like,
calls.
He's like, shut up. Oh man. I do find it really interesting that somebody like Jim is having these discussions with like kind of damning information through email. Most, like when I worked in real estate, if we were ever having conversations that were like sticky, it was always on the phone call. Like you never did it in a way where there was going to be the potential for somebody to take an email or tweak it or whatever, because it's just not worth the trouble. One guy we did a deal with, he was like hardcore racist. No joke. He wanted, he had a list of ethnicities of people. He didn't want to buy the building if those people lived there. We told him that's like super illegal. We can't send you listings or not based on the demographics of the ethnicities of people there. So he ended up leaving and working with another brokerage who seemingly did it for them. But for that, like that guy, he knew that that would be a bad look if it came out that his company didn't want to buy buildings with this certain racial demographic within it. And so he insisted on only having those conversations over the phone. Because even though he's like a bigot, he's not an idiot, you know, at the very least.
I mean, you would think, but I got like some emails with like damning information from like the biggest gaming companies because someone there was called like Joran, or like like basically Jor, but then not the D, but like another letter there. So he accidentally sent me it over.
Oops.
So instead of like having this email where you have to like, I in my head it was always like, okay, this studio is so secretive. If they send an email, you probably have to like go to a website, insert a password, whatever. No, it was all there. It was like the budget for the game, the release date, a PC release that was not even announced yet, stuff like that.
Wasn't that what like how they got those Grand Theft Auto 6 leaks? Weren't those all like from a Slack channel?
Yeah, but that was hacked though. Like that was like someone going in actually. They hacking things.
They got into the account
in my email box, and I was like, "What the heck is this?"
Yeah, which is really, really funny. But like even that, I would not share confidential information over like a private Discord chat or a Slack chat. We would never do that. It was always like you put it in Dropbox, then you send the secure Dropbox link with the password. You tell them the password over the phone. Like it's pretty straightforward, but I think a good number of these companies are kind of lax with security, which is crazy.
That's like a good segue to the next point, to the next thing with Sony, like actually sharing like one document where they use like this sort of pen or whatever it is to block some things, some redacted things. But actually, if you look closely, I'm not sure if you can like see it if Luke pulls stuff on
you
stream.
Totally can.
But like if you just like look at it on like just look at the tweet, yeah, you can easily see it here.
6 years, 2017. Yeah, you can see all of it. Like the game cost, I think probably $212 million to develop, a peak head count of over 300, maybe 330 full-time employees. Development on The Last of Us Part 2 took longer than 20 months.
20 months. It was like 5 years for Horizon Forbidden West. Started in 2017, ending in 2022. Cost $212 million. Peak headcount 300 full-time employees. And then they go on about The Last of Us Part 2. Took longer at 20 months, starting in 2014, ending in 2020. Development costs were around the 220 million, and headcount peaked at 200 full-time employees. But they all like wanted to block that info out. But instead of using like an Adobe like program or something.
Yeah, it's this is such a boomer thing to do. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's like so I just had a bunch of like documents my CPA came and like told me to sign and go through and stuff. So I was like, yeah, just send them over. I'll sign them in DocuSign or Adobe Sign, whatever, and I'll send them back over. And CPA is great, but was like, what? I mean, I don't know about that. Maybe just print them and then sign them, and then you can like mail them to me. I was like, but I don't have to, because I'm going to mail them to you and then you're going to scan them in. Just let me do it in DocuSign. We'll be done in 10 minutes. Like, it doesn't have to be this difficult. And like, we just would really prefer you sign them on paper. And like, this is a common thing. But somebody had to like print this out.
Yeah.
And then take like a Sharpie, basically. They have special pens that are wider for this, for blacking this out. But somebody had to do that, black it out after printing this document, and then scan it back in. And somehow they didn't notice that you can still read everything that they blacked out, which is just like so freaking stupid. It's amazing, man.
But let's talk about the numbers here, because I thought it was like, we usually don't really hear it. We of course hear like Sean Layden, the previous like CEO of PlayStation Studios. He was like, these games are costing way too much. Like, it's getting out of hand. People have like unrealistic expectations, or, I mean, it's what they of course make, but like the technology improves and there are more people working on these projects. They take longer to make, so obviously things get way more heavy on the cost side. And 212 million to make Horizon Forbidden West. That's crazy. I think the first game was like 100 million or something, because that actually leaked out to the Dutch press, but because it's of course a studio in Amsterdam. But I did some math, and it sold like 8.4 million units in a year and 2 months. So if we say like at an average of $50, that would still be like 420 million in revenue. So they easily made it back, but it's still like, if your game doesn't sell more than 5 million units, which for a game like Dead Island 2 or something will be hard to achieve. That probably did not cost that much, but I mean, it's getting pretty crazy.
It's getting very crazy, and I mean, you look at. I'm a little surprised that The Last of Us Part 2, the numbers are what they are. This number of months is really. I don't think it says 20. It says something, because if it started in 20, I think it's 2016 or 14. Is that what it says? 14? Yeah, it looks like
14, because 2013 was when Last of Us 1 released.
So maybe 70 months? It took 70 months? Is that what they're saying?
But it's more, right? There's more than Horizon.
Yeah.
Or am I?
So they spent, say, 70 months developing it, ending in 2020. Development costs were around 200. It looks like 220 million. Something right about there, but that's with 200 full-time employees. It's just crazy to me that like The Last of Us Part 2 is built with a team of 200 people, over granted 6 years, but still, right? Like, it's a lot of work, a lot of time. Yeah. But these games are, even though they're not made by thousands of people, they are projects that take years and years and years of some amazing developers focusing on them nonstop. And I understand why a lot of devs are like, this probably is not super sustainable, because if you have one oopsie, if you have one flop, because they mentioned the marketing, and this is where I'm honestly not sure if Horizon Forbidden West was that successful for them, because if it cost them $212 million to develop in film, the article I read was that a lot of movie budgets double or triple when you factor in the marketing budgets. So yep. If it's even similar for video games, and they spent another 100 million or 200 million marketing the game, your total cost is over 400 million. And I'm not sure that is that successful if you like barely break even by like 10 million or 20 million or whatever, because a lot of this is going to get eaten up in the arbitrage between like processing, foreign payments, and currency exchanges and all sorts of stuff. And fees paid to retailers for copies sold. It's not like they're getting the full $70 if you buy a copy through Amazon or something.
Fair enough.
So
yeah, that's why I went with the $50. Of course, digital. They of course get the full thing, and that's why Sony will probably launch a PlayStation 5 with an external disc drive, so even more people go digital only. Mm-hmm. But like I don't know if the marketing budget is included. On one end,
they say down here, in addition to development costs, global marketing costs for AAA games are large, even for established titles. So in addian, they're not including that in the total budget. Oh,
damn, that's kind of crazy. But I do think that movie budgets are, like, marketing is higher. Probably, I don't know, maybe not.
Who knows? I don't know.
But it is like a fact, though. Like, they of course also sold this in a bundle with the PlayStation 5. We have to factor in that as well, but that is for Sony another way to write off some money, right? They of course put it on PlayStation Plus Extra now, so more people subscribe to that, so they might allocate some money to Guerrilla Games for that. And I do think, though, that they at least broke even already, so everything they sell right now is like 100% profit. But yeah, I do agree. Like, Horizon 3 might cost 300 million. Like, then it's getting like tough, because I don't know if that game will sell in particular like more than this one.
Because you just have to. like you got to think of it from the perspective of like a corporate executive who's not emotionally attached to these games, and often they're not even playing them. They might test them occasionally on a trip to the studio, but they're not like a lot of these guys that are making the budgeting decisions are MBAs. They have like crazy degrees in finance, but they're not hardcore gamers, right? And with this, if you're looking at it from that perspective, do you greenlight a team of 300 people for a 6-year project that might break even within a year, and then after that they might slowly trickle in some more profits? Or do you pour all of that money into studios that have the potential to actually generate a ton of profit, not just revenue that breaks even, but profit? And that's where you see Sony trying to start throwing cash into live service games, because this stuff, well-regarded games, they're praised. Games like The Last of Us Part 2 win tons of awards and all this, but they're very, very expensive. And once they're sold, like that's it. You might have a DLC for one of the games. The Last of Us Part 2 never got anything. Horizon, of course, did. But there's not a lot of long-term potential for profit after that initial wave of
Some
sales.
merch, of course, but
Merch,
that's like
yeah.
small part of it. But that's why I think Sony is going hard with the HBO show. They probably made a shit ton of money on that for The Last of Us.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Horizon will get one as well. And I mean, that's why we've been like making fun a bit of the live service like strategy for Sony. But the devil is in the details. Like, we see it here. This will only go up, and they will continue to make those games, and they will continue to make a profit. But what if all the money they put in this like Horizon Forbidden West, all the assets, and that's what they're doing now. They're making a multiplayer game by using a lot of the machines and stuff like that they already created for Forbidden West and Zero Dawn. They're doing a Zero Dawn remake. So they're using a lot of the tools that they already did for Forbidden West to elevate the original. And of course, the Burning Shores already had, like, by them making it a PS5 exclusive, it had new cloud technology, etc., etc. That will also be used in the third game. So they're already like making smart bets with that. Ubisoft is the key of that, of course. I think Mirage is like the best example. They're extracting way more value out of Valhalla by basically using those tools to make a brand new game. And of course, Origins to Odyssey. I remember when the first screenshots came out for Odyssey, I was like, is this the same game? But yeah, that's of course how these things always go. But I do get it now. Like, we talked about it before here as well. Like, if they can sell 3 Horizon Hunter skins, whatever, for your main character in the Monster Hunter live service game, that is the same amount of money that they would get from a Forbidden West that takes 5 years to make, costs 212 million, then they will of course chase that.
And
but
all
like
of that is like
scary
sold through the in-game store.
Oh, yeah.
And so they get the straight cut of that right to the veins. That's the good stuff. That's the good cherry on
juice.
top. Ooh.
They want that. Yeah. And to be fair though, that's why I think Game Pass is actually very exciting. Because looking at games that they announced for Game Pass, like maybe not Avowed, but like the second game they showed from the We Happy Few creators. I'm not sure what Midnight or something. Or like the Clockwork Revolution, of course. Those games, if they like put them out, and we've been seeing that for Bethesda games recently as well. If they put those games out, they probably 1 million would be a lot. So they probably would not break even. But they're still greenlighting them because they might like have a nice drop on Game Pass. It might get good reviews because it's actually the game that the developers are very passionate about and really wanted to make. So maybe it gets like good reviews, more subscriptions. So looking at it from that perspective, I do think it will allow developers to make way more, cool, and maybe games that would otherwise not have been greenlit because they would not be financially viable. And in some regards, we're all seeing that with Ubisoft. They're now doubling down on Assassin's Creed Far Cry and Ghost Recon and Rainbow Six and Division. Those will be the games they put out moving forward. And then here and there, we might see like a Prince of Persia side-scrolling game.
Yeah.
Because they know everything we put into Assassin's Creed, we will probably get that word. Like, that's like a safe bet for them, even though that might backfire. But that's, of course, a different conversation. But still, Mirage will make a shit ton of money. Red will make a shit ton of money. They know that. So that's why they can have like because we're talking here about 300 full-time employees. Mirage has 500 full-time employees working on it.
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy.
And I know
and
we
Red
all
will probably have thousands.
Yeah, we love to beat up on these big studios. I think some work more efficiently than others for sure. Like it's always amazing to me that Call of Duty has thousands and thousands of employees and they can't
3,000.
Yeah. And like they seemingly can't balance hardly anything. It's always like
maybe that's
broken.
the reason as well. Like, well, you don't know what teams in other parts of the world are doing if they're like tweaking the same gameplay systems or something.
Yeah,
right? Must be really hard.
And that's where like management comes down to it. The tool sets are really, really important. I mean, just as a YouTuber, having editors that are working on stuff is tricky, especially once you start playing around with different time zones. Like it gets crazy complicated. So imagine having thousands of employees working on one project and they are working on opposite sides of the globe. Like it gets pretty complicated. How do you have conference calls? Like how does that work? And one thing I gotta give Ubisoft credit for is that they, except for some examples, which we all know about, Skull and Bones, they generally work fairly efficiently. And generally it's pretty impressive how quickly they can pump out massive games with a lot of unique assets. Odyssey is probably the best example of a game that didn't have a crazy long dev time and was just
3 years.
Gigantic.
Yeah, 3 years immediately after Syndicate, which launched, of course, at the end of 2025, and Odyssey 2028. I think Immortals is even crazier, although that, of course, did not have like a lot of narrative content, but that game came out in 2 years after Odyssey.
It's wild.
And they even did like DLC for Odyssey as well, so like the Fate of Atlantis stuff that was also made in-house. Yeah, that's crazy. Red will be very, I think, insane as well, because that will have started in early 2021. So after Immortals, so that will be in development for like almost 4 years, but not.
Which in Ubisoft years is like 8 to 10 years. I mean, that's a long
that's
time.
Right. Because what they're actually doing, someone like told me that, and I never really thought of that, but that's obviously very like, it makes sense. But because they have all these studios in like many countries, they basically have someone working on the game every hour of the day. Because they don't like when Montreal sleeps, someone in Europe wakes up and goes make the game. So
and maybe that actually helps. Maybe I don't have any idea, but maybe for like creating the world, you have one team of designers that goes until this time, and then 10 minutes later, the next shift comes in, and they can keep going through without stepping on each other's toes. Populating maps. Like I have no idea. I know a lot of stuff is like segmented and teams work on this zone and then
different zones in particular.
But I don't know. Maybe it's I would love to sit down with one of their like upper level managers and just hear about the process of getting thousands of people to work on one thing for years. Like it's amazing to me. It's fascinating.
Sure.
Anyway, what's next? What's next to discuss?
So actually, you wanted to talk about the Pete Hines thing, just to round out this like extensive topic already, but it's fascinating stuff. So the Pete Hines versus Phil Spencer, and Pete Hines with his club at Bethesda. It's like this one, the group versus side chat.
Yes, this one's really funny.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Jason Schreier tweeted this out. This was something that was released as part of the viewings and the email releases as well. But just notice the difference in tone, okay? So the person that's emailing in both of these instances is Pete Hines. If you don't know Pete Hines, he is the guy that, I'll just show you a picture because you're going to recognize him. Pete Hines is this dude right here. You've seen him on pretty much all of the Bethesda Softworks showcases for the last 15 years. He's the global head of publishing. Before that, he was like a marketing lead. He's been around forever, and he's like Todd Howard's right-hand man, and now he's been promoted up and up and up, higher and higher into the company. But what we're about to see are emails that he sent, in one case to Phil Spencer, as you can see up here. And then in another email that we'll look at right after, he's sending this to Jamie Letter, Todd Howard and Todd Vaughn. So people that are basically his peers. This one is an email directly to his boss. Okay, so just buckle up and see the tone difference. Speaking to his boss, he just says in response to the blurb that he has highlighted, we have committed to Sony that we will also make the Call of Duty games available on PlayStation beyond the existing agreement and into the future so that Sony fans can continue to enjoy these games they love. We are also interested in taking similar steps to support Nintendo's successful platform, blah, blah, blah. Basically, he's looking at this and is just asking Phil Spencer, so what is the deal? You're saying that we're keeping Call of Duty stuff on PlayStation, but for ZeniMax stuff, we're ripping all of it. It's a little weird. So what he says is, I understand that there is likely nuance here, but at its core, it's being read as the opposite of what happened with us, as is mentioned in this article covering the blog post. And then he goes in, describes how games like Starfield are going to be exclusive to Xbox and PC. And then he's like, I just want to make sure I understand how I think about the above when speaking to devs, employees who ask, as well as for Todd, myself, and anyone else that might get asked about it in interviews. So he's just looking for clarification. And then in his email to his peers, buckle up for this, I'm confused. Is the below not the opposite of what we were just asked or told to do with our own titles? What's the difference? Emphasis in bold is mine from this blog post. Then he highlights the same thing. Did anyone at Xbox think about giving us a heads up on this? Todd is going to DICE in a couple weeks. You don't think a journo might find him and press him on why the below is okay for COD or any Activision Blizzard games, but not for the Elder Scrolls 6 or Starfield, or at any or every future interview he does? Like, pretty upset that they just dropped this news that they were going to keep all this Activision stuff, but then meanwhile, ZeniMax stuff is all being made exclusive. And he's like, this is like a blatant contradiction, and you didn't tell us, even though Todd Howard is about to go and do a bunch of interviews. Why weren't we told about this? And I just love this. I eat this up. This internal email stuff. I love it.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, real quick, I think it makes sense to have Call of Duty still be on PlayStation while Starfield will like be a system seller, but it won't have like this live service microtransaction like sort of fest where they will make a ton of money. So I think it makes sense, but yeah, I like the conversation there.
People were like giving him crap over the difference in tone. Who doesn't talk to their boss in a really nice, polite way? Everybody talks to their boss, if you want a job, in a nice, polite way. And then once you're talking to your coworkers, like, oh my God, can you believe what the boss just did? That was so dumb. That's just how people talk. But with this, it's fair. Apparently, they didn't get any heads up on this. And Todd was about to go to DICE and have journalists ask him, like, what is this about?
That is like, I think, kind of getting the issue with Microsoft just being too big. Like, they have just so many things for especially Phil going on that they just can't give everyone, I think, the heads up on everything.
It starts to become a huge sort of behemoth that's very slow moving, doesn't turn on a dime, very like inagile, if that's a word. And having a smaller team is nice, and I think that's what people like about like studios. A lot of studios that are really, really successful float around that like 150 to 300 employee number, and I think that's because that's enough where everybody kind of knows each other and there's no strangers, and it's not big enough where it's like, oh, I've never spoken to anybody on that side of the office. I have no idea who they are. You know everybody. Whereas you know Microsoft at this point has like tens of thousands, if not over 100,000 employees. It's crazy. It's wild.
So what they also like, what we also learned, I want to quickly go over this to go to the Red Dead news. But Microsoft, like, they also there was like a filing released where it was basically like they wanted to buy Sega at one point, Bungie, of course, now acquired by Sony, and also IO Interactive from the Hitman series. One of the reasons they wanted to get like Sega was they have built like a well-balanced portfolio of games across segments with global geographic appeal that will help us accelerate Xbox Game Pass both on and off console. Of course, like with the Sonic movie, I think Microsoft might be interested in like having a huge IP like that. Obviously did not happen, but hey, Microsoft always said that they weren't done after Activision, although I do think they will like cool down a bit if this eventually goes through. And today it came out that they were also like looking into Square Enix buying that, and then also to have it for a Game Pass on mobile to like launch all those. Of course, Square Enix, I'm not sure if you know, but they like launch all their old games like Final Fantasy 1, etc. On mobile as well, and they do some like dedicated mobile games too. So having that on Game Pass on mobile, I guess, makes sense. But yeah, there is an idea for a Game Pass mobile sort of version, maybe similar to Apple Arcade, but then with Game Pass games or something, and the cloud streaming, I would imagine, also plays a big role in that, which is interesting. And we learned about the IO Interactive. I already said that, but they are like doing a fantasy game. So of course they're making the 007 game. We know about that, but they're also doing a fantasy live service type game. So it's kind of different from what they usually do. Yeah, we see like the concept art here on screen that they shared, and yeah, that seems to be an Xbox exclusive, Xbox PC.
A lot of irons in the fire. And I mean, just nobody thought that this was any different, but clearly Microsoft has been fishing around looking for new prey for a while.
Yeah.
And so it's not like they just casually decided one day to jump on ZeniMax and then to jump on Activision. From these FTC filings and things we've seen, that one of the big, ironically enough, one of the big pushes for Microsoft to go and acquire ZeniMax was when Phil Spencer found out that Sony was in talks to buy the exclusive rights to Starfield. And Todd was like, no, we're not doing that. And so they then started chasing it down, and then a deal was made thanks to Robert Altman, who passed away like I think a couple of years ago. And then with all of this Activision Blizzard stuff, that was also a deal that they knew was going to be big. They kind of bounced around with Bobby for a while. And the fascinating thing with all of this, and I think maybe people, I don't actually know if people are aware of this, but all of these CEOs are like going to the same country clubs. They're all going to the same dinners. They're all hanging out at the same restaurants.
Yeah.
All these CEOs know each other. A lot of them are on boards with each other, which is like a weird sort of social group. It's odd, but I had somebody explain it to me who was on a few different boards at some big companies in Denver. And he was like, oh no, we don't really do anything at the board meetings, but it's just a good chance to catch up with other business people that you might want to rub shoulders with. He's like, he told me he goes to one just because John Elway, a Colorado football legend, goes and is on that board. And so he's like, yeah, I just go to that board meeting and I'm on the board because I like hanging out with John Elway. And I was like, oh, that's weird. But
I mean,
okay.
that was like also having like Eve in that email, right? About with the Sony execs.
Yeah.
Like, just dropping Eve there casually.
Talking like it's your buddy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Eve's going to love this, man.
Yeah. If a lot of people leave Activision, that will be nice for Eve so he can like hire new talent. So what the heck? Okay.
Yeah.
So let's jump to the Red Dead Redemption re-release. We have the thumbnail, of course, for that. So what happened basically is that Red Dead Redemption got rated in Korea. And usually when that happens, it means that the game is coming out soon. And of course, this game launched already, like way back. But this like rating is separate from the Xbox 360 and PS3 versions. So that's why people are speculating that it might be a sort of re-release, remaster, whatever. So it was like the application was received June 5th, 2023, and classified on June 15th. And rating maintenance decision on June 27th. So that's why it came out right now. No platforms were listed, although again, it's a separate rating from the game that has already been released. Now we also have an actor, I think the actor behind John, like talking about that he would love to like do something, of course, with the series again. Whether it will be remastering something or something totally different, I don't know. I can't say enough good things about Rockstar. If they do that, great. That would be awesome. Some people are speculating that it might be coming to PC because I don't think it ever released on PC. And I also grabbed this from the Take-Two pipeline, where basically they said how many games they plan to launch for the next 3 years. And they also have like a segment for new iterations of previously released titles, and they expect 6 of those. So, we can expect like 6 remakes, remasters in the next 3 years. So a Red Dead remaster makes a lot of sense. I still think it's crazy that Red Dead 2 is not on like PS5 and Xbox Series X.
It's
That's
crazy.
like money
It
on
seems
the table, right?
exactly. To me, it just seems like such a layup to bring.
Yeah.
For one, Red Dead 1, the only way you can really play it nowadays is backwards compatibility through like the Series X if you have a disc, and like if you have a 360 laying around, which is how I had to get it up and running. I think
Is it
when I
backwards
played it.
compatible? Probably.
I think if you put the disc in, then it works. I don't think
Okay.
it's like listed. I'm not sure though. It's been a minute since I tried it, but I know I got it working, like a year and a half ago, probably. However, it's way more difficult than it should be for one of the most lauded games in modern history to be so difficult to play nowadays is crazy. It's just wild. It works on Xbox One. Maybe that's what I did. I pulled out the old Xbox One X and I played it on
But
that.
then it probably still works on Series as well, right?
You would think, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seems like money on the table. You just release a decent, we have to specify that because Rockstar doesn't have a great track record with remasters, but a decent port to PC and to modern consoles. It doesn't even have to look very good. Just support higher resolutions. Like that's all you need. It can still be locked at 30. Who gives a crap? Just do that.
It would be awesome if it looked like 2, though. If
it was like a full remake, that would be amazing.
I mean, would that be a remake if they're like, probably, right? They would have to redo quite a lot of stuff.
I think all the
look
assets would be too
Yeah.
poor, and all the character models would be too low poly, and there's also weird stuff with those like 2010 games where they compressed the ever living crap out of the audio. So when you listen on like a decent pair of headphones or speakers, it sounds horrible, but it's because they compressed it all so bad. So hopefully they have backups to all of that and don't have to redo all of it. But yeah, man, I totally agree. It's easy money. If this ends up being a thing, which I really hope it is, that would be tremendous. And like they said, like Jor mentioned, it is not the same as the Xbox 360 and PS3 version. It is filed as a separate thing. So it could be that it's just like a new edition or something.
Switch version.
Switch. It very well could be a Switch version.
I hope not, man. I hope.
Dude, that would hurt my heart so bad. I'm like,
it's a Rockstar game on Switch, probably, right? Like something.
Didn't the freaking Grand Theft Auto collection go to Switch?
Oh yeah, the bad. Yeah.
The really bad one, the definitive collection.
Oh, LA Noir's on Switch as well.
Yeah, but that was Team Bondi, so I'm not sure if that counts.
Yeah.
But
Love that game, by the way. But
oh, I love LA Noir. Oh man,
that's so cool. But like also, what it was also mean like the Red Dead Redemption 2 that doesn't have like a patch.
Yeah,
PS5
not even like a
series.
60 FPS patch like they did with The Last of Us Part 2.
While they were still supporting Red Dead Online, which is like also kind of crazy. But what do you think? What's the future of Red Dead? Do you really think they're gonna revisit it? Do you think after GTA 6 they're gonna do a Red Dead 3?
I mean, I think it's an easy layup. I think they also would like to try something new. Though everything I've heard about the Rockstar team is that they're a little snooty, and to be fair, they've earned the right to be snooty. So I'm not saying that they shouldn't be like super confident, because clearly they know what they're doing. But that's also been the problem with a lot of remasters and remakes and stuff, is that management's asked them if they'd be interested in doing remakes of games. And there was some like leaked thing, and they were just like, no, we don't do that. We don't do that. We're doing bigger projects. So I think that there's some stuff with that where there's a little bit of we're too good for that going on. And I honestly, after the team's been working on Red Dead, then GTA 5, and then Red Dead, and then GTA 6, I could see them wanting to try something different, just like Naughty Dog wanting to try something different after Uncharted and The Last of Us back to back. So I would guess something new, something fresh.
Yeah, I would hope so as well. I also think like that. Yeah, Red Dead was like also like with the support for Red Dead 2 and how Red Dead Online just did not really set the world on fire. It also of course had many issues and stuff. But with them not even like launching a next gen version for the game, like that tells me also that they just kind of shifted away. The game did sell like more than 50 million copies. Like it's one of the best selling games ever.
Yeah.
Red Dead Redemption 2. So, but I think that anything Rockstar put out and maybe like a potential new franchise, like there were once rumors about like a medieval, like a sort of Skyrim, or like or then like realistic like medieval sort of games like Kingdom Come Deliverance.
I still swear to God, I will crime if they do like Naughty Dog or Rockstar, if they do like a pirate game in the golden age of piracy. I would do such dirty things if that like facilitated
will it launch sooner
that
than Skull and Bones, do you think? What will be out?
At this point, man, who knows?
No, but yeah, I hope that Red Dead gets some love though. This first game, and that I liked Red Dead like the first online mode way more than Red Dead 2's online mode. It was like for that time, it was like pretty crazy.
It's kind of arcadey. It was kind of like it just was not trying to be super serious and grounded. And I thought
for that time, like fun. When did Red Dead Redemption came out? 2010 or something?
yeah, 2010.
Yeah.
And you're right though. Like if they just brought it, I think if they brought Red Dead 1 to PC overnight, the moment they launch it, probably at least on Steam 1 million copies, probably more. Because a lot of PC players have never played it. Because it never came, and especially if they're younger and they played Red Dead 2, they never got a chance to play the first one, they jump on it, especially if they launched it at like $50-$60 if it was just a straight port. But if they did any sort of remaster work to improve stuff, easily like tens upon tens upon tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue, easy money, layup. And didn't the CEO of Take-Two say like 6 months ago that they have just an onslaught of upcoming titles? Wasn't that a thing?
Yeah, that's the thing that I have listed here. Like they have 17 immersive core games. So those are like the big ones, like Judas they mention here, but like a Borderlands 4 would be part of that, GTA 6. So 17 games in the next 3 years. Yeah. And then mid-core like Lego 2K Drive, like 4 of them, so not a lot. And then also 6 like iterations of previously released titles. So that would be like remakes. Like the BioShock, they did like a trilogy for that, so that would like fall in line with there. But like 17 immersive, and like also, and that's where the speculation comes from that GTA 6 is launching next year, is because they now make like $5 billion in revenue every year, but next year they want to make like $8 billion. Yeah. And then the year after that, increase that even more.
Which, dear God Almighty, that was so funny when they announced those numbers. And everybody's like, so it's GTA 6, right? And they're like, we just have a lot of projects that we're really excited about. It's like, everybody knows, dude. Just admit it. Like, what? Come on.
I mean, what else can it be? Like, Borderlands 4 is gonna be huge, but like 3 million bump? Like, no. BioShock will be big, but not like, I don't like it will be a huge success if it even generates $1 billion.
Yeah, that's just the deadpan straight face of like,
But can you imagine the day that GTA 6 launches? I really think that, I don't know, man. It's gonna, even like GTA 5, when that came out in 2013, when gaming was 10 years ago.
Oh, I remember. Do you remember the first time you saw that GTA 5 trailer?
Yeah. No, I remember more that they like just launched like a screenshot or something of like a zoomed in character. Like any small detail would like get, for that time, millions upon millions of hits on Twitter, while it was like way smaller back then.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
This throwback, I'm going to kind of scroll it around so they don't copyright strike it, but because they'll do that. But this thing, I remember watching this trailer for the first time. And I mean, this released November 2nd of 2011.
Damn.
Just, do you feel old yet, guys? And seeing
all
this,
great. That's the crazy part.
Yeah, it looks pretty good. And like, yeah, you can tell the resolutions are lower, the poly counts are lower, but it really is crazy impressive that this thing was running on the 360 and the PS3.
Yeah, man.
Oh man. And so I totally agree. The moment that they come out with GTA 6, the internet's going to explode. And every game, like, this is one of those titles, Elden Ring, when it came out, a lot of people cleared out for the next like month because everybody's like, yeah, they're just gonna be playing
Apart
it.
from Horizon.
Horizon, yeah. Horizon has a talent, dude. I made a whole video on that. It's actually like the day this channel really started to turn around, ironically enough. That video kind of kicked me into motion to figure out a new style of content. But it was a video where I was just describing how like Horizon was basically set up to fail. Like they released it in a time window where it was just going to be overshadowed by this giant behemoth. And it's the second time that it's happened in the 2 releases for poor Horizon, because last time they had Breath of the Wild, and it's just amazing.
My prediction now is like the new Witcher game will launch like the week after.
That would be so delicious. Just to have 2 corporate giants being like, I'm not doing anything. You back down. No, you back down. No, you move your date. I don't care.
I mean, to be fair though, Elden Ring was first in January, and then they like moved it 1 month. So I think they already printed the discs, and we're like, damn, we now have to go.
We're in too deep. Yeah, it's just.
And then we didn't know how big Elden Ring would be because it was still like new IP. How big is it gonna be? Sure, it's gonna be big, but not like the levels that we saw.
Yeah, I think everybody was braced for it to basically be sort of a Death Stranding thing, where it's like, yeah, it's big, but it's probably polarizing, and it'll be talked a lot.
Yeah,
but anyway, it was just crazy. But I agree.
Like, going back to Rockstar, like I do miss the years, like the generation where they would launch more than a GTA Online update every year. Like, and we do have Remedy who's like remaking, I think, Max Payne 1 and 2. So they are like going to other studios, of course, like they made those games, like to remake their property. So I really hope there's like an LA Noire like remake.
Oh dear God,
like,
dude,
those games were so special. But that's really also what we were talking about at the start of the show, with how much money they make, and for them it's just way more revenue if they launch like 5 cars in GTA Online.
Yeah,
that a few artists made, and they probably make a way bigger profit on that in terms of like the cost they put in. So that's
I agree. It sucks for those of us that really like those games, like LA Noire. Yeah. But it's true. Like LA Noire, you probably have to build the whole thing back from the ground up because you can't use the same facial animation tech. You're gonna have to recapture it. You're probably doing like a reboot. I don't know. It's gonna be very expensive.
Like VR, they still did like they release. It is weird though. It's like I think the title that they release the most in like different formats or something.
Yeah.
Because again, it's on Switch, like the only Rockstar proper game that is on Switch.
It makes me wonder, like, were they kind of playing around with it, seeing what the interest was like, and then maybe I don't know what the rights are like, but man, if Rockstar's main studio went back and tried to do something kind of in that same vein, but with a Rockstar coat of paint, I don't know if they could get the scale to justify that expense. But man, I think that's a layup too, because the interest in that franchise is still there. But to circle all the way. Yeah, that's true. They're very Anyway, but to circle all the way back, I mentioned we'd go back to this at the very end of the show with those Starfield editions for the upgrades and things. And I did find it. I looked it up. I did find it. If you go to the Xbox store page, you can see that listed is a Starfield Premium Edition upgrade. So if you have Game Pass, you pay $34.99. And it upgrades you to the premium edition, which normally would be $100, which gives you the digital art book, the soundtrack, the old Mars skin pack, all that.
But
early access.
But you probably will need Game Pass then to play it.
Yes.
So so that is interesting though. Like you can't like just subscribe for a month, get this edition, and then be done with it. But it's very we will see this for many games.
Yeah, I think that this is the new standard. Yeah. I really do. Avatar has a $130 version. What?
No.
Ultimate Edition is $130. The Ultimate Pack, pre-order bonus, digital art book, season pass, and then the game. That's wild, dude.
That's crazy, man.
The Gold Edition is $110.
But that's like because I get what does that?
It has like the Ultimate Pack and
that is actually interesting because that means that you basically do not get like a deal, because normally the season pass like $40 unless they make the season pass $50. because usually with the gold edition you get like $10 off the season pass. So if it's like $40 more, I mean,
They're coming
okay.
out swinging. Maybe it's
Maybe
fine
the
because
Disney
it's
money,
Avatar.
the Disney fee, the Disney
The
fee.
Disney fee. Like Disney is charging us so much for the rights to this.
Yeah.
They're holding a gun to
put
my
like
head.
the blue characters in our Far Cry game, we have to pay extra.
Yeah, it's the Smurf pass. You're gonna pay the Smurf money. Oh man. Anyway, lots of stuff going on in the gaming industry. A lot of it's really, really funny. These Xbox FTC filings are just delicious. I love them dearly. And I don't know, are we gonna be getting more? Is it still going on? Are they still chugging through this?
Yeah, it's still going on, I think, this week. We actually just now got, like, in 2021, over 1 million PlayStation players only played Call of Duty on their PlayStation and nothing else. 6 million PlayStation gamers spent 70% of their time only playing Call of Duty. Damn, son.
That's why they're worried.
Those are some huge numbers. But not enough for Jim Ryan to get his ass on the plane to go to this court battle.
Yeah, couldn't be bothered. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that it has, like the professor said, do you think he's kind of given up on this? Or do you think that he's trying to do the like, oh, I'm just so busy, I can't be bothered. I'm not even going to dignify this by appearing. What do you think it is?
Probably both. But I mean, like the best move for Sony would be to already be like, okay, this is going to happen. What can we do? Kojima, you're with us now. Square Enix, like, they have to make big moves now as well. They can't be left behind because this will have a huge impact. So they have to, probably buy up more studios as well. Like bigger than, like only Bungie was like a big thing for them because all the other studios they bought, they already were in bed with anyways. They were already making a PlayStation exclusive game. So now they were like, hey, we're going to buy you. But only Bungie was like kind of out of their comfort zone in a way. So I think they have to make more moves like that. Square Enix might be on the table.
Yeah, maybe. Square Enix has been in trouble, so we've all heard the stories of how they've been running their business. So
I mean, if your biggest game launches like 3 million, like that's the story with Final Fantasy 16. It has like 3 million in like the first week.
Okay.
And it's like fine, it's like great. But what we saw with Final Fantasy 7 Remake, and I think that will happen with 16 as well, is that you have this base, and Kingdom Hearts has this as well. Like you have this hardcore audience, they will show up no matter what, but they just can't convince other people to try this game. The demo helped, but that's of course still like a small portion. You want the mainstream for a big budget game like this. Like this game probably cost 200 million easy as well for them without the marketing. So they of course got some money for the Sony deal, but still they have to sell way more than 3 million units, and it could totally be like we saw for Final Fantasy 7 Remake that it just goes down. And what I'm also seeing with the views for my channel, and that's just a metric that I sometimes use because I do think, like for example, Hogwarts Legacy super well, right? Did super well. Diablo did super well, and then you hear those, that game sold a lot, and then for Final Fantasy 3 million, the views are like fine. So and you kind of saw that for other games as well. So I do think it's like an interesting metric to look at. But
no, I totally agree.
I don't know,
and I agree completely that there is an approachability problem with Final Fantasy, and this is something that Final Fantasy people who are super into the franchise either don't understand or like are very insecure about. Because when I've said this on stream, the like fanboys come out of the woodwork, and I don't even think it's that controversial of a thing, but it's just for your casual, especially Western gamer, Final Fantasy, when there's a 16 next to it, that's daunting. It just is. And if they were to restructure it, and instead of Final Fantasy 16, it's just Final Fantasy Endgame, whatever. If they started branding it like that, I think it might initially perturb some Final Fantasy fans, but I think that would actually do a lot. Something as simple as that.
I really think people will still play the game, like because Final Fantasy 16 is basically really trying to appeal to the mainstream audience, but that number is, like you said, I talked to my friends. Well, I'm saying like play the demo. It's like Game of Thrones because I love the game. I'm almost done. I almost finished the story. Like I love the game, and I'm like play the demo. It's like you don't have to know anything from the other games, but they're like, yeah, I don't know. I never really liked. This is a different game. There's like they could have called it anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is Final Fantasy because it has the chocobo and the Moogle flying around. But apart from that,
Yeah. It's just daunting. Like I would probably say it's intimidating. You know, it's like
yeah.
I really wanted to jump into Dragon Quest, whichever I can't remember because it also I think it's 11. I think that's right.
Oh, is that the MMO?
It was 10 or 11. I think it was 10.
Yeah. Yeah, at 11 is the MMO, I think.
Yeah, either way, I was going to jump into it. This proves my point. In fact, the numbering scheme is so confusing. I think it was 11, actually, looking at the pictures of it.
Oh, yeah. The MMO is like 9 or something.
But I was looking at this, and I was like, actually, this looks kind of compelling. But the fact that it's Dragon Quest 11 is just like, do I, like, this is going to be a big thing to bite off. The other piece is that for a lot of people who have a big kind of catalog of games they're working through, or that are living kind of busy lives or have families that they got to juggle with as well. A game that is massive like Dragon Quest, which I was told at least is probably like 100 hours at least. That's also intimidating. Like it just creates this idea that this is daunting. And if this is a game I'm going to play, I need to play just this game for a month or two. And a lot of players are just not, especially in the West, are just not willing to make that sacrifice. So I expect Final Fantasy sells, like you said, very, very well, very quickly, because all of those hardcore fans jump in and buy it. But long-term sustained sales, like we saw with Final Fantasy VII Remake, probably drops off pretty quickly. Which, I mean, this thing that you linked is very telling. God of War Ragnarok sold 5.1 million in this time period that they were looking at. It ended up selling over 11 million. Last of Us Part 2 sold 4+ million, ended up selling over 10 in this by the time they ended up, stopping counting.
I mean, God of War having 11 million is insane because it launched in November, of course. So that has like a huge deal.
Yeah, that's already crazy.
But
then
good.
Final Fantasy VII Remake, very quickly, third fastest selling PlayStation exclusive at 3.5 million. After that, it only did another 1.5. And that's been out for years. Depending on when they stopped counting. And so it just slows down very quickly because everybody that would buy this buys it very, very quickly soon after it releases.
Yeah, so that's kind of the thing they have to struggle with, and that's your biggest franchise. So Square Enix is kind of in a like an easy. I mean, I would love those teams to make like something like. I mean, they tried it with Forspoken, I guess, but
they sure did. Big ol' emphasis on the try.
yeah. But it's crazy. Like the amount, like in Forspoken, you have like a couple of cool boss fights, but the final boss fight in that game is like the first boss fight in Final Fantasy 16, and then in Final Fantasy 16 you have like 10 more of those. Yeah. It's like that's crazy, man. How much more
epic.
Budget 16 had? Yeah, so great. I'm gonna play it now.
Yeah.
So let's finish the podcast.
Go play.
It has been fun.
I appreciate all of you guys in chat. You guys are wonderful.
For sure.
Iraq, I agree. I've wanted to play Final Fantasy, but I don't know where to start, so I haven't. And that's what I mean with that like intimidation.
The demo. Start with the demo.
Try the demo. Final Fantasy 16, the demo, I will say, maybe Jor disagrees with me on this, but I thought 16 is a little slow moving, especially at the start. It loves its cutscenes. So if you're into the narrative stuff, you know that it's going to be great, especially if you like Game of Thrones, heavy inspiration there. But Final Fantasy VII Remake is also tremendous. So if you're interested in Final Fantasy 7 is not a bad place to start either.
It was on PS Plus, so if you have been like downloading all your games, it might be on like a PS Plus extra or something as well.
Yeah. So that's a winner, I think. Lady Blah Blah, GTA 6 will release only on the Ouya. Dude, do you remember the Ouya? Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
The Ouya.
Way ahead of its time.
Way ahead of its time. It had a touch controller, guys. A touchpad on the controller. What other company does that with their consoles? You can play your games on the television.
Wow.
Oh, dude, the Ouya. I missed that.
I remember one of my friends like buying that. He really thought he was like, it was like a Kickstarter, I think, right? One of the first. So everyone was like, oh yeah, I got it. And I was like, dude, what are you even gonna play on it? Like Doodle Jump or something? Like
Yeah.
freaking iPod Touch games.
I remember somebody like, maybe it was Angry Joe. I saw a video where he booted it up and was just like, immediately boots it up. It asks for credit card information before you can log in to the console. And then he does all that. And then he logs in and there's just an entire row that's like online entertainment. And it's nothing but porn, like very graphic thumbnails of porn all across it. He's like, dude, this is not a great start to the future of gaming, because it also got huge. The Ouya got huge right around the time that like Raspberry Pis were getting big. And so I think it was part of that trend. And for people not familiar, the Ouya was this weird, like knockoff, weird Chinese, weird, whatever console. This lady. So it was just, it came at a weird time, but it was promised to be like the future of console gaming, open platform, open source, so everybody could develop games on it. It was going to be amazing. And it just ended up being a total dud and a disaster that is widely mocked nowadays. Go watch the Krabby Cat video if you've not seen it. It's really, really funny. So that's what I will say. Anyway. I am going to go check on the babies and see if Lockie woke up from his nap. Well, he hasn't woken up from his nap, but I'm going to see if he needs more medicine. You guys out there in YouTube land, you guys are wonderful. Let's answer this one last one because I see my name in it and I'm an egomaniac. Pepperoni Ronin, Luke, have you thought about what the Horizon online multiplayer game it's going to be, I'm assuming? I think it should be in the Monster Hunter genre, as the games already share the same core mechanics as those games. That's my understanding.
See that art already that leaked? I think I said it before, right?
Yeah, are we allowed to show that if it's been leaked?
I can show it on my webcam and then you can like quickly cut it.
Oh, fancy.
I mean, it's on like freaking, if you like Google.
Oh, that is the alleged artwork leaked. You guys can also Google it too. I mean, but it does look to be like Fortnite mixed with Horizon. So I would agree a Monster Hunter. I think it's going to be
Genshin Impact Monster Hunter. Because they they sell characters.
Yeah, they'll like sell the characters. Abilities. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. And so it's like a hero character thing mixed with Monster Hunter. Could be good. Probably not my thing. I'm waiting for Monster Hunter. When are we getting the next Monster Hunter? That's true.
I mean, Rise just ended support. I would say next year. I think Dragon's Dogma 2 is up first, and then next year they will have Monster Hunter Paradise or World Tour or whatever they're going to call it.
I would love more Monster
Will it be Microsoft exclusive if they end up buying Capcom?
Oh, dude, if they timed that, can you imagine if they timed that right? They come in, they buy the exclusivity, and then they buy the company after that, depending on how well that goes. That would be baller. Oh, God. I love me some Monster Hunter. Anyway, thank you guys for hanging out with us. You guys are wonderful. We'll get this up on all major podcasting platforms just as soon as we possibly can. Reviews are always appreciated over there, so you can listen on the go. We love you very, very much. Thanks for hanging with us.
Go play Final Fantasy, the demo. It's free.
It's free.
I'm just saying Final Fantasy. It's called Final Fantasy. Don't look at the number.
Don't look at it. Ignore the number. It's like a weird damage to the art box. Yeah, don't look at it. Focus on the name. Thanks for chilling with us, guys. Much love. We'll see you next week.
Yes. Goodbye. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.